Welcome to the Fiscal Physical Podcast. Join us each week as we sit down with the founder of Alchemy Wealth Management and author of Your Fiscal Physical, Ryan Nelson. Tune in to gain valuable insights and practical tips as we simplify complex financial concepts into digestible lessons. From budgeting to retirement planning, this podcast is your go-to resource for mastering financial literacy.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you to the listeners. My name is Aaron. I am here with Ryan Nelson. We are producing or setting up the Fiscal Physical Podcast here, coming to you, not live, but live wherever you guys are getting it, checking us out on Tuesday morning. And Ryan, holy smokes, man, 100 episodes. This is number 100. How you feeling about that?
Yeah, it's crazy. Time really does fly. It's incredible.
It really does, man. I mean, we started this journey almost 2 years ago. I mean, we talked about it like for a while leading up to it. Like, you're like, I really want to start this podcast. I think we could really do some good stuff here. And I kind of hemmed and hawed. And then, we decided to fire it up like right after I had a kid, which
perfect timing.
Perfect timing. Couldn't be better timing. I had so much free time.
Yeah.
And it is funny. I go through and I listen to those like original, first 10 episodes or so too, and like you see us kind of trying to figure out our groove, trying to figure out our chemistry, these different things, and looking back and reflecting, it's funny to see how far we've come. And but what are your thoughts, right? What does 100 episodes mean to you?
Yeah, it almost is like almost representative of investing in a lot of ways, where it's like you just like have a systematic approach, right? We have a system and then you just kind of like buckle down, and before you know it, your net worth's a lot higher than you ever thought, and before you know it, you reach 100 episodes, right? And like if you have a systematic, consistent approach, like it's crazy how these things just happen, right?
Yeah.
It's when I think the equivalent in the market would be trying to like time the market or get in or get out, or like if you just have consistency, it's crazy. Like you look back and you're like, 100 episodes, that on day one, that felt like that would have been so far away, right? Now it's like, oh yeah, that's like nothing, right? And then I'm sure 200 episodes will come before we know it. And it's like, it's just, again, that consistency is just so key, both in investing in this and in most other things in life as well. Yeah,
no, that's super well said. I'm glad you were able to bring it back to that kind of that financial piece of it kind of in there. So normally, as you guys have hopefully listened before, we talk about a topic or topics specifically, but I think today, for the 100 episodes, we're going to kind of reminisce about our favorite moments, highlights, insights that we've learned over the time here, and I'll fire us off here. But before I start, I think that you had an excellent point there, Ryan, that I really want to harp on. So I did a podcast before this with my buddy, and it was like it was great. Had a phenomenal time doing it. It was really good. I wet my whistle as far as podcasting goes. But
definitely,
we wrote each individual episode, and we did one episode at a time. And with the approach that we kind of take here, of where we like jot down 5 or 6 episodes at one time, and so we get them all on paper, and then we'll record an episode and such too. So I think that the approach that we use is just really does make it digestible, I would say, and we get to spend some time together as well too, which is always fun. As we get older, I feel like it's pretty fun to spend time doing something that you like with people that you like. So really appreciate it there. And but let's jump in here, Ryan. I mean, as far as like we'll have you start, I guess. What's one of your favorite episodes, and why, I guess, that we've done over the last 100 here?
Yeah, so probably my favorite episode, or at least one of my. I mean, it's so hard. It's like,
I know, dude.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, and honestly, I can't even remember all the. There's just a lot of them. But one of my favorite episodes is episode 53. It's titled "Risk and Reward: A Guide to Modern Portfolio Theory." So, modern portfolio theory was like one of the most maybe technical topics we've covered on the podcast. And so, while it's my favorite, it's probably most people's least favorite. Most people probably turned it off after the first 2 minutes. No. But one of my favorite like concepts, I love things that are like counterintuitive, or like things that like you wouldn't think work or in this episode about modern portfolio theory, we talk a little bit about diversification. And so one, again, of my most favorite like concepts in investing is, in this episode, I explained how if you had if you had investments that were on a risk scale from 0 to 10, and let's say you had you had one investment, investment A that had a risk level of 6, and you add a second investment that has a risk level of 8, intuitively, we would all think that your risk just got more risk. Your portfolio got more risky.
Right.
You had a holding of 6, you added a holding of 8. Seems intuitive that your risk of your portfolio would go up, right? The counterintuitive thing and the important thing with modern portfolio theory, if those are the right two investments with the proper correlation or lack of correlation to each other, your total overall risk of the portfolio could have dropped. So you could have gone from starting with a 6, adding a more risky holding to it, and your portfolio, the risk of the portfolio actually gone to 4 or 5, but increased the overall expected returns of your portfolio. So I love the, this won a Nobel Prize. And again, I think it is counterintuitive, but it really, I think, sort of harps on the importance of building an appropriate portfolio, not just buying random stocks that there's a difference between buying random stocks that you think will go up and building a diversified strategic portfolio that complies with, say, modern portfolio theory. And so I just really love that concept and the counterintuitiveness of diversification in how with a properly diversified portfolio, you can increase returns while decreasing risk.
Yeah, no, it's funny when you started talking, I was like, shoot, I don't remember what that is. And then you just,
sure.
And then I remember being like, I was like, because I think you asked me like on that podcast about, or that episode about like, oh, you would think this would increase your risk, right? And I was like, oh yeah, definitely. Of course. Why wouldn't it? You're adding an 8 into a 6 and you're like,
right.
Actually, that was a great one for sure. And it was I just looking, obviously this podcast isn't, the video on it, but you could see your face like light up when you start to talk about that. That's always a good thing there. So, I'll piggyback on that with one of mine was episode 18, the progressive tax system. I remember when I was proofreading your book when it was you had some people proofread it, and I remember reading this chapter on the progressive tax system, and I was in bed and my wife was asleep, and I woke up my wife because I was like, did you know how this works? Because I was 32, 33 at the time or whatever, and I was like, I am 32 years old. I had no idea how this worked. I had always heard that like it was a bracket. So you hit like this certain number and automatically all your income, you pay this amount. But learning about like the progressive tax system, how it works in the United States, about like how it, you fill up one bucket and then you move into the next one. So it's not like, hey, and you really broke it down to where it's like, hey, it's not a bad thing to make more money. Sometimes, like it's not like you.
It's good.
Or some might say it's good. Like, when it comes there, and so I think that this episode, I still contend that if you guys want to listen to one of these episodes, listen to that one because you're going to have to deal with taxes at some point, and it really kind of gives you a little bit of a peace of mind as well too about like now I kind of understand at least the basis of the progressive tax system and how that works.
And that is a concept that it's interesting. There's a lot of things out there, like in the finance world, that I think people just don't understand and know they don't understand it. This is an interesting topic because I think this is a topic where most people think they understand it, but they actually misunderstand it. So they might have this false sense of confidence. Like, again, I think in that episode we talked about sometimes people will like at least consider turning down pay increases because they think it will they'll make less money. And that's just not how the tax system works. So there's people out there making they have confidence in their decisions because they think they know how the system works, and it's just ignorance around how the system actually works, and they may be making decisions that actually hurt their long-term success. So it's a great episode for sure.
Absolutely, man. What about you? What's another one you like there?
I was just thinking, I'll make an audible here, and I had something written down here, but I'm actually, as we were talking there, it made me think of another episode. I liked episode number 6. It was bond value. It was our first listener question. I think it was Eric who had this question, and it was bond value in a portfolio. Should an aggressive investor hold any bonds? And so it was a question around, if I'm a young aggressive investor, should I just be invested basically in the S&P 500, or should I invest in something else, right? And I love this question because it's like such an educated question. It's somebody who knows what they're talking about. Clearly, the fact that you would even ask the question means you understand the difference between, say, bonds and stocks, and you're trying to figure out what makes the most sense for you. We just talked a little bit about diversification. What I think is so interesting is there's I like this episode because there's a whole cohort of people out there that only invest in the S&P 500. And so this applies to such a large percentage of the population. And similar to what we were just talking about with the taxes, like I believe that they truly believe what they're doing is in their best interest.
Sure.
But in the grand scheme of things, I think there's just a bit of underlying ignorance there. And so like with the S&P 500, like if we think about all the different investments out there, we just talked about one of my other favorite episodes was around modern portfolio theory and how you can take multiple investments, increase your expected level of return, but decrease the portfolio's overall risk, right? Which is ultimately what we want to be doing. And so there's all these different investments out there. There's large U.S. companies, medium-sized U.S. companies, small U.S. companies, international companies. There's bonds, there's corporate bonds, government bonds. There's all these different what we'd call asset classes or different types of investments. And when we look at the S&P 500, what's so interesting with it is it represents such a small sliver. It only represents large U.S. companies. So you have no international exposure. You have no exposure to medium companies, small companies, no exposure to bonds. Not only that, you really, the S&P 500 represents the 500 biggest companies, but it's so skewed. It's what we call market weighted. So the big companies represent such a larger piece of the index. So really you might only affect it, like the bottom 100 companies represent almost nothing in the portfolio, right? They represent like a few percent probably. And so really what you end up finding is, I only actually, if I dive into this, it's like practically I actually only own, a handful of the biggest U.S. companies. Maybe I'm not as diversified as I thought. And then on top of that, guess what? Companies happen to be the biggest in the U.S. right now. Primarily tech companies have gone on this big run. So it's like, I go from thinking I have this diversified portfolio being in 500 different stocks to now, like when I dive in deeper, it's like, actually, I only effectively own a handful of the biggest technology stocks in the US. And so it's like, maybe I'm not as diversified as I think. And maybe they react to each other the same way, right? So that's one like episode I like. And another real quick, analogy I liked in that episode was, do you remember what it was?
The lifeboat one?
Yeah.
I was just gonna mention that was where you threw out the lifeboat one, and I remember we were actually recording that episode, I believe, in your basement. Maybe I can't remember.
Yeah.
We did the first few in your basement,
right?
And I remember you threw that out, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So I'll recap the analogy real quick, but it's like as the story goes, and again, I'll probably butcher it, and it probably won't even line up with the first time I told it exactly because I don't remember that well. But the essence of the story is, when the Titanic launched. Apparently the Titanic was famous not for being like the biggest ship, but for being the fastest ship. And so as the Titanic launched, the engineers start doing this calculation. They're like, hey, we have too much weight on board. We're not going to make this trip from point A to point B as fast as like we claimed. And that was the whole claim to fame of the ship, apparently. And so they said, we got to cut some weight. Like if we're going to make this, we made a big deal about being able to make this trip in this amount of time. We're not going to make it. We got to cut some weight. And so one of the engineers was like, it's an unsinkable ship, isn't it? Why do we have all these lifeboats on? So they say, yeah, it's unsinkable. So let's strip these lifeboats, right? And so now the Titanic's going faster. And we all know how that story goes. It hits the iceberg, and apparently the reason why this story was so devastating wasn't because it hit an iceberg and sank. It's because they didn't have enough lifeboats on board. And apparently, I think at that point in time, it wasn't necessarily super uncommon for boats to sink, but they just had the appropriate lifeboats on, right? And so like the analogy to finance is, should you have bonds in your portfolio where we can kind of think of bonds as these lifeboats. So if you didn't have any bonds in your portfolio would grow faster, right? Our expected returns of bonds are lower than that of stocks. So by putting bonds on this portfolio or lifeboats on this boat, you are slowing down the boat or slowing down your investment returns. That being said, is that a bad thing? Not necessarily, right? Part of having a long-term effective strategy is mitigating risk, right? And when there is economic downturn or a market down cycle, you want to limit your losses, right? I can't remember now who it was. Was it Warren Buffett? I think it was Warren Buffett. He says like the first rule of investing.
Oh yeah.
I think it was Buffett. It was somebody like that, but I think he says like the first rule of investing is don't lose money. The second rule of investing is see rule
number one. Yeah.
It's something to that extent. But so it's like, loss mitigation is absolutely massive when it comes to long-term expected returns. And so, it's a fun little story. And so it's like, yes, you may intentionally plan to underperform the S&P 500 by adding bonds and diversifying your portfolio. And that might actually be what sets you up for longer term success over a 30, 40, 50-year time horizon.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was. I'm glad you brought that up because that was a great episode, a great conversation. Also, our first, like you mentioned, first listener question. So huge shout out to the listeners. Yeah. Those are great. We love those questions when they come up. So if you guys have any more, please let us know. We're gonna probably be doing another 100 episodes here, so we'd love to get those. One of the other ones that I liked too was episode 78, understanding where money from your paycheck goes. Seems like a pretty basic one, but when we actually dug into it and you kind of broke it down, obviously these aren't recorded, can't see the video, but I was like, whoa, that's what that means.
Right.
That's where that goes. And like, once again, 34 years old, I should probably know these things.
Sure.
It's like, but now that I do, I'm like, cool. Now I feel very confident understanding my paycheck. And I've used this episode like with my team at work. I have a team of people and I'm like, hey, like, are you guys ever interested in where your paycheck goes or like what it actually does? And like most people are like, no. And I'm like, well, if you are, like every once in a while you get a couple of people, and I was in like a Google Hangouts meeting and I was like, guys, check this out. This is what this means. Did anybody know this? Right. Like, and everybody was like, no, I didn't know what this meant. I don't actually know. Why do we pay this tax? Right. I was like, well, because our employer pays this part of it. And like, so I think that it's a really crucial like episode to kind of basic understanding of certain things that like you might have an idea like, oh yeah, it goes to taxes, and you're like, well, what taxes? Yep. Like where does it, how can we, what happens if I make more? How much more do I put in this? What percentage? So I really thought that was a cool one that especially if you're working for an employer,
for sure,
whatever's there too. So what about you, Ryan? Got any other ones there?
Yeah, maybe I'll give one more real quick. Episode 9, it was about backdoor Roth IRAs. I thought was interesting. There's actually an episode before that. Was it episode 8? Probably episode 7 about Roth IRAs and traditional IRAs. Yep. But this is another thing, kind of like when you were talking about the tax system, where I think people have this sense of confidence in the decisions they're making, but they're unknowingly making the wrong decision. And that's true, I find, for Roth IRAs a lot. One of the most common mistakes I find people making is they'll come into my office, they've been contributing to a Roth IRA for a number of years, and I tell them, you're not eligible to contribute to a Roth IRA. And they say, what do you mean? Yeah, I've been able to do it. Yeah. It's like, the investment companies, they don't have any like direct system to track how much you're earning and limit you. It's really an honor system there. And so I think it is important for people who are managing their own finances. Just because just because a system lets you do something doesn't mean the IRS is okay with you doing that, right? And so this is, again, one of the most common things I see where somebody is doing something incorrectly, and with a little bit of education, they could be doing it correctly. And so hopefully we were able to provide some of that education, so maybe a few more people out there don't run into those same mistakes.
Yep. Without a doubt, man, that's awesome. And I think back on, we have some great episodes out there, obviously, and it's really funny to think back on. Like, there's certain memories that kind of stand out when I was when we were doing these ones, and one of them, it's actually fun. I get this one quite a bit. Like, I was traveling with one of my buddies the other day, and he had mentioned how he switched jobs several times or whatever, and he's like, I just really need to just work for one company. He's like, I got so much stuff. I'd have to learn their system and then the health insurance, and he's like, I got so many HSAs out there just floating around, and like he was like, triple tax advantage though.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, yeah,
that's awesome.
And then I was talking to my uncle when it went up for my mom and dad's 40th wedding anniversary, and I had no idea he listened to the podcast. First off, I haven't talked to this guy in probably 20 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he had found out that we were doing this, and he mentioned he's like, oh, I got an HSA, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. He's like, triple tax advantage.
Wow.
And I was like, that's hilarious. That like I was like, that's awesome.
It rolls off the tongue.
It really does. Like the triple advantage, the triple threat, as I like to call it. So it's funny to see what kind of sticks with people.
That is,
and what people kind of find like fun or whatever. Like, and I think back on like one of the episodes we had where I had mentioned like, you know, you had asked me like some, not trivia, but it was like math stuff. Like, hey, like how much like I think it was the one with like Lazy Larry or Larry the Lingerer or whatever. Like, and you were like, how much do you think this person would make if they would have invested on the worst day or didn't invest at all? And I think I got every single one of those wrong, like not even close. And every time you're like, good guess. And I remember that was so funny. And I remember I probably listened. I don't even know what episode it is, but I listened to it like twice because it was just really humorous overall. So I don't know if you got any funny moments or quips or anything that you've kind of experienced over these last 100 episodes, Ryan.
God, one of my biggest takeaways is that your favorite smell is the smell of tires.
Yeah. Oh, good. Good. Yes.
Yeah. I'll have to get you some like tire cologne for your birthday or something.
Honestly, that'd be awesome. Like people like get like fresh car smell or whatever. And I'm like, oh, just give me one that's like tires. I would just be huffing that thing. Yeah. That's one that, you know, it's kind of weird. Like as I think about it, I know it is, but I love it.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
But that one, and there was an episode I think we pride ourselves on, you know, being professional and trying our best to like keep conversations moving and such too. So it's only happened a few times on this, but there was one time specifically I remember I completely blanked out on what I was saying. Like it was like an intro or you had said something and I was like, and then I got to talking and I was like, literally, I don't know what I'm saying or what we're doing here.
Right.
And like, I was like, man, Ryan, I don't know what happened. I don't know what I'm saying. And you're just like, I'll take it from here. And then you're like, actually, I'm not sure what I'm saying either. Like, and then it was like one of those ones I was like, oh, we'll just cut that out. Never did. But it was funny. Just those funny memories you kind of have over the last 100 episodes. But anything else, Ryan, that stands out? Any highlights, events?
I think too many to call out individually here, but it's been a fun run for sure.
Yeah, no, I echo that for sure, man. It's always good getting to spend some time with you, and I really do feel like, you know, the reason you wanted to start this and we really wanted to accomplish is increase that individual's financial literacy, give them a quick snippet of where it's like, cool, like you can, you know, throw this on, you know, and listen and hopefully learn something along the way. I do think that we've accomplished that over the last 100 episodes. I have people on Tuesdays who are like, cool, here it is. We got the new episode. What do we got? Like I wake up at like 6 a.m. and I check and like we already have like 25 downloads and I'm like, that's awesome. Like to be able to reach that many people and, you know, just some highlights at this point here. I mean, we're, take these certain statistics you find about, I was trying to figure out how many podcasts like make 100 episodes or get there. And like the numbers all vary. Like they're like, cool, like it's this much, but it was like 4.4%, I think is like what it's like actually make 100 episodes. So that's a big, you know, big accomplishment in itself too. But also I think that this is super cool that we've had listeners from 52 different countries.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's wild to me. Like,
can you name 52 countries?
I don't think I could. You know, like I was going through and we use a platform called Buzzsprout. Shout out Buzzsprout to like host our podcast to get into these different platforms, and it gives you all the statistics of what cities listen, what you know, countries and such too. And I was checking this out, and I was like, we have like just a strange diversification on this too. Like we got 100 downloads from somewhere in the Netherlands. And I'm like, who is, you know, listening to this in the Netherlands? Like, or in the UK,
Write
Canada.
us and let us know.
Yeah. Like I'd love for you guys to chime in, you know, let us know, like email us podcasts@alchemywealth.com about like where you found us, why you're listening, why you're like what you enjoy about this. It was super cool. So, I think at the time when this episode actually drops, will be over, I think it's over 8,000 downloads as well, too. So, you know, hopefully more. Hopefully I undersold that, and we're just going to have some awesome ones that come through here. But pretty wild, man. Pretty wild to think of where we started, where we came from, and, you know, what the future kind of holds here. So,
yeah, it is. It is impressive. I'm looking at the country list now, and some of these I've actually never even heard of and don't know how to pronounce, and I don't want to offend anybody. And then there's other ones I'm like, wow, yeah, they don't speak English, so it's impressive in general. There's a ton here, though. Yeah, Israel, Brazil, Vietnam, Denmark, Indonesia, Puerto Rico, Greece, Spain, Romania, Turkey, Morocco, Portugal, Italy, Thailand. There's a ton. Guam.
List goes on and on there for sure. But want to shout out, I mentioned Buzzsprout, our hosting platform. I use Alitu as the other one to actually edit these podcasts, which is a great, super user-friendly. Really appreciate it. They really helped me at the start with getting things off the ground with this too. And, want to give a shout out to my wife who allows me to do this, take the time away from my family to really do this, which is a passion project and something I really enjoy. And big thank you to you, Ryan. I mean, you were kind of the driving force behind this, and sitting down with me, and when you sit down, you really do have that ability to teach. And
sure.
I think it's an undersold thing that I really do learn every time that I'm here sitting with you. So really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you. You're the one that makes this all happen. So it certainly wouldn't be a podcast without you. I appreciate all the work you do to make it happen and bring it to the listeners.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great place. Normally we do a personal section on these episodes here, but I think for this one being our 100th episode, we're kind of mixing it up a little bit. And, I think that it's a solid place to end this one. And just before we go, I really want to hammer home the gratitude we have for the listeners out there, the people that engage. We got some core friends who really do enjoy those Tuesdays when it drops, and the shout outs we give people. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and we're just getting started here. And Ryan, as always, I will turn it over to you for the final words here, my man.
As always, stay the course.
Thank you for joining us for the Fiscal Physical Podcast. Until next time, happy listening. And as always, stay the course. If you have a question or topic suggestions, please email us at podcast@alchemywealth.com. If you enjoyed today's discussion, subscribe to the podcast to ensure you never miss an episode. And consider leaving us a rating and review on your favorite platform. This helps other listeners like you find the show. For more resources, you can visit Alchemy Wealth Management's website at www.alchemywealth.com or find your Fiscal Physical, the book, on Amazon. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention that personal finance is just that, personal. Please don't take anything we say as advice. The preceding content is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It's not an offer or a solicitation, nor should it be construed or relied upon for tax, legal, or investment advice. It doesn't consider your personal financial situation or objectives and may not be suitable for you.